Never marry a man who's still living with parents. Learn from my experience. I should have known something was off the very first night I spent at his parents' house after our wedding. It was supposed to be special, the beginning of our new life together. But instead of stepping into a home that belonged to both of us, decorated with the little touches that screamed us, I walked into a house that wasn't mine, and clearly wasn't his either. His parents hovered like ghosts in every corner, their furniture, their portraits, even the smell of their cooking woven deep into the walls. That night, as I sat on the edge of the bed, we were now expected to share in his old childhood room, with football posters still on the wall and his mother's choice of curtains in faded pink. I felt this wave of unease crawl over me. I kept telling myself it was just adjustment, that love was enough, that I could adapt. But something about the way his mother knocked on the door every 15 minutes with one excuse or the other, do you want more food? Or is the fan working fine? Made my stomach churn. It wasn't care. It was surveillance. She didn't trust me. She didn't trust us. And when I looked at him expecting him to put up boundaries, he just smiled sheepishly and said, "She's just being nice. Don't mind her." That was the first seed of doubt planted deep inside me, though I buried it under forced smiles and reassurances to myself. As days turned into weeks, the tension became unbearable. It was like living in a fishbowl where every movement was observed, every choice judged. Breakfast wasn't ours to decide. His mother decided what we ate when we ate, and even how it was served. If I tried to cook, she would hover over my shoulder, correcting the amount of salt, criticizing the way I cut onions, and finally snatching the spoon from my hand. My husband never once intervened. He would just laugh awkwardly and tell me to let her do her thing. Nights weren't better either. Imagine trying to whisper to your husband about intimacy, your future plans, or even just silly pillow talk, only to hear a knock on the door because his father needed to borrow something from the room next door. I started feeling like a guest in my own marriage, an intruder in their family fortress. The breaking point of those early weeks came one evening when his mother barged into our room without knocking, carrying freshly washed clothes. She dropped them on the bed and casually said, "I don't want her mixing her laundry with ours. I'll take care of it." She meant me. She meant my clothes. My face burned, my throat tightened, but when I looked at my husband, he just sat there nodding like a child as though her words were gospel. That was the moment I realized this wasn't a marriage between two people. This was me marrying into a system where I was expected to play the role of a second daughter, never truly a wife. And the suffocation of that reality started sinking in day by day until it felt like the walls of that house were closing in on me. The longer I stayed, the more I lost myself. It wasn't just about meals or laundry anymore. It was about control, about territory, about me being silently erased in my own marriage. I remember one Sunday afternoon, I decided to rearrange the small shelf in the corner of the room we shared. It wasn't much, just a few books, some perfumes, my journals, but it felt like a tiny corner I could call my own. I carefully stacked the books, placed a framed photo of us from our honeymoon on top, and lit a small scented candle I'd bought in Port Harcourt before the wedding. For the first time since moving in, I felt a spark of belonging. That spark lasted less than an hour. His mother walked in, without knocking of course, sniffed the air, and her face contorted like she just caught me committing a crime. "What's that smell? We don't use candles here. It could burn the house down. And what is all this clutter?" Before I could say anything, she snatched the frame, muttered something about dust collecting, and wiped the surface with her handkerchief. My husband stood there the whole time watching. When I asked him later, begging him to just speak up, he sighed and said, "Babe, please don't make issues. This is her house. She's just trying to help." That line, "This is her house," stabbed deeper than any insult could. It was the moment I realized that to him, I wasn't a partner, I was a visitor. My needs, my voice, my existence could be overridden at any second by his parents, and he would never lift a finger. The emotional weight of it began to bleed into my body. I stopped sleeping properly. Every night, I would lie awake staring at the ceiling fan, my chest heavy with resentment. Even the sound of footsteps outside our door made my heart race, because I knew it was only a matter of time before someone barged in or passed judgment on something I did. I couldn't breathe in that house. It smelled of other people's rules, other people's authority. I tried to hold on, thinking maybe love could somehow survive suffocation, but the cracks widened every day. One night, I overheard his parents whispering in the living room, their voices carrying down the hallway. His father said, "This girl is too stubborn. She doesn't respect this house." And his mother replied, "Don't worry, she'll adjust or she'll leave. He's our son first, her husband second." That line shattered something in me. I realized then that I was never going to be enough for them. And worse, I was never going to be enough for him either. Not as long as he lived under their roof, under their authority. The next morning, I confronted him, told him we needed to move out. That if we were serious about building a marriage, we needed a home of our own. He just laughed bitterly and said, "Do you know how expensive rent is right now? Why waste money when we have everything here? My parents have provided everything. You should be grateful." Grateful. The word echoed in my mind like a curse. Grateful to live in a place where I was monitored like a child? Grateful to have my privacy stripped away? Grateful to be treated like an outsider in my own marriage? That was when I realized love wasn't going to save me, not here, not with him still shackled to his parents' control. The breaking point came during what should have been an ordinary evening. His family had gathered in the living room watching TV, chatting while I tried to retreat quietly to our room after a long, draining day. I wanted nothing more than silence, a little space to breathe. But his mother stopped me mid-step and announced in front of everyone, "You don't greet properly in this house. You think because you're married, you can just walk past us?" No, my dear, you are still learning. My face burned with humiliation. Everyone stared at me, waiting for my reaction. I forced a smile, greeted again, and walked away, but inside my chest was caving in. When I got to the room, I broke down, sobbing into the pillow. I thought my husband would comfort me, defend me, tell me I didn't deserve that. Instead, he stormed in furious, not at his mother, but at me. "Why are you always making a big deal out of nothing? Why can't you just adjust? Why can't you just be humble?" His words were like knives, each one stripping me further of the dignity I was trying to hold on to. That night, I packed a small bag. Not all my things, just enough to walk out. My heart pounded as I zipped it up, tears streaming down my face. I didn't even care where I would go. I just knew I couldn't survive another day in that house, in that marriage that never really belonged to me. When he saw me with the bag, he laughed. Actually laughed. And said, "You'll be back. Where else can you go?" And that was the final crack, the moment I knew I was done. So I left. I stepped out of that suffocating house, out of that prison of a marriage, and I never looked back. It wasn't easy. I won't pretend it was. I spent nights crying on a friend's couch, days doubting myself, questioning if I'd made a mistake. Society whispered that I was impatient, that I should have endured, that marriage was about sacrifice. But deep inside, I knew the truth. Sacrifice should never mean erasing yourself completely. What I had endured wasn't marriage. It was submission to a system designed to keep me small, voiceless, invisible. And my husband, no, the man I married, had chosen his comfort under his parents' roof over building a life with me. That realization hurt more than anything, because it meant he was never really mine to begin with. He belonged to them, and I was just a guest passing through. Today, when I see young women rushing into marriages with men who are still tucked comfortably under their parents' wings, I want to shake them, hold their shoulders, and tell them what I learned the hardest way possible. Never marry a man who is still living with his parents. You won't just be marrying him. You'll be marrying their rules, their eyes, their judgments. And unless you are ready to disappear inside that house to live half a life where your voice is muted and your worth is constantly questioned, you will break just like I did. Learn from me. Don't do it.